Alright guys, Gemini, back with another video, and this video today, I'm going to have some people disagree with me, dislike, but you know, it is what it is. Everybody on YouTube has different opinions, so that's kind of why you came to my channel, is because you wanted to hear my voice and you wanted to hear my opinions. Otherwise you wouldn't be here watching it right now. So thank you for watching and thank you for caring about my opinions. It means the world to me. Wrestling, when it used to be underground, to me was a lot better than it was today. And no offense, but the fans were a lot better when WWF was really underground and there wasn't so many fans out there. Wrestling used to be a hell of a lot more underground than it is. What inspired this video? I was messaging this guy I used to work with, 5 years ago. We were texting back and forth, and out of the blue we just started texting, and he's like a hippie. We were driving a truck together. He's somewhat of a hippie, and we were having a conversation if he was going to go to Burning Man this year, and he was laying out all these heavy text messages like, nah man, I'm not going to Burning Man. Burning Man used to be way better when it was underground, and it's too corporate now, and it's changed, and it used to be underground. And I kind of agree with him on this whole Burning Man theory when it comes to pro wrestling. Pro wrestling to me used to be better, when it was underground. It was, when not everybody knew what it was. Back in the day when you used to call up a video store to rent a tape, and you would say, do you have any WWF tapes? And they would come back and say, what's a WWF? Not everybody knew what WWF was. So then eventually when you would find a pro wrestling fan in your area with like tapes and stuff, you know what? It was cool because you knew that they were a hardcore fan, and you didn't find fans that were just a dime a dozen just complaining about stuff on the internet. Really, the fans back then were a lot better than they are now. I mean, really, back then in the 80s and stuff, when you would go to a WWF live house show, you'd be hearing, say, Ravishing Rick Rude was wrestling Rowdy Piper. You would have half the building cheering for Ravishing Rick Rude. You'd have half the building, cheering for Rowdy Piper, and they were emotionally invested in the pro wrestling product. Unlike today, these were better wrestling fans than today. I'm sorry, but if you started watching pro wrestling when it was a lot more underground than it is today, the product was so much better. The fans were so much better and so much more passionate back in the day when it came to pro wrestling. When it came to your town, you got legit excited because you knew you were going to see the big stars like Hogan and Savage and Ultimate Warrior and Earthquake and people like that. Nowadays, for me, I'm looking at the card when it comes to town. I'm like, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and them wrestling in the main event in a 6-man tag, whatever, versus the Wyatts. I'm like, man, that's kind of a shitty main event. For me, unless the big stars are on the show, I really don't want to even really go. That's why it's good to go to WrestleMania, because you're going to get a good show. But when it was more underground, the wrestlers and the wrestling, they put on a lot better shows. And you had a lot more fun at the shows. And it's too corporate now. It's turned me off. There's too many pay-per-views, too many money grabs, too many money pits. And I miss the days when it wasn't so corporate and it was a lot more underground. And nowadays you can meet these fans and they really don't know jack shit about the history of pro wrestling or care. And you see that especially here on YouTube. A lot of the fans on here, you could say something from as recent as like 1997 and they look at you like you're crazy because they weren't even watching wrestling in 97. Back in the day, man, late 80s, early 90s, you'd meet wrestling fans and they were totally underground, and YouTube wrestling community is like the underground community of YouTube, and there's a lot of guys on here in the East Coast and stuff and out in California who remember wrestling when it was underground and it wasn't so corporate, and it was a lot better. I'm sorry, back in the day before it became so corporate, in 99 when they got on the stock market or something. It's changed a lot. It used to be like you'd get a VHS tape and it was pretty prestigious. you know, you would be able to go to the video rental store, rent your tape, and sometimes you'd have to wait 6 weeks just to get the tape. And yeah, it's advanced a lot, but wrestling is not better now. It was a lot better when it was underground and not everybody knew about it. You know, a lot of new fans have come along because it's got so popular and it's kind of killed it. Just some thoughts. Leave your comments below. Gentlemen, I thank you.